All right, welcome to dbWorld. This is Derek Bush. This is my world. We are brought to you by Lynx Bar and Grill, located out at 7500 North Grandview in Odessa, Texas, across from Ratliff Stadium, the famous Ratliff Stadium sports complex. It's just a stadium. I call it a sports complex. I got really excited about that. But we're located inside Ratliff Golf Course and Grill, located out at 7500 North Grandview in Odessa, Texas. Tonight, we kind of moved the setup. So shout out to Homewood Suites for hooking it up with the room. JJ, thank you for coming through clutch. Like this is, Richard, we were having a lot of background noise at the bar. We got regulars out there at the bar, but and there's tile, and I was like, no, we got these pop filters on the mic, it'll be okay. But then we were like in post production, we were like, God, how do we clean this up? Like it. Someone be talking, and then all of a sudden, somebody screams, like, "Oh my God!" And then you're like, it's like a real, important part of their story, and then it's like not the audience, that you want didn't sync with the storyline, right?
I got you.
So
when someone's telling something personal, right?
yeah, and then somebody just took an extra shot, so everybody got really excited, but. So we're here at Homewood Suites. I'm with my friend Sara Kate Billingsley, the judge. I call her Your Worshipfulness since she's been in office with the robe. So how long have you been a judge now?
Since, the governor appointed me August 21st, 2015, but I was sworn in September 2015. So almost, 4.5 years, I guess.
Yeah. So you liking it?
I love it.
Do you?
I do. I think it's awesome. When you're a litigator, you are essentially paid to play.
Right.
Your client hires you, and you have a mission, and it's normally to go and get the verdict that they're looking for.
Right.
Sometimes that may not be the best course of action. It may not be the best thing for the kiddos. It may not be the best thing for the employee or the company, or depending on who your client is, but you are essentially paid to play. Obviously you don't break your ethical rules. You don't cross those boundaries. But being a judge, you just get to do the right thing all day, every day, without any, consequence. No one's going to fight you about your bill or be mad at you. Actually, strike that. Lots of people.
Yeah, I
lots of
gotta say,
people
come
get
on,
mad at
man.
you.
You gotta be. Come on. You're in the family court,
Right,
man.
right. So yeah.
So one side's always. Is it generally? Do you think that there's, is there a percentage, like, 60% of, statistics are bullshit, but do you think there's like a percentage, like X number percentage of people, they walk away and both sides were good?
I think a lot of times both sides are good and both sides are bad. And
Okay.
I always say that if you walk away from my court and you're both slightly miffed at me, then I probably got it right.
Okay.
Because you shouldn't come in and leave my court thinking, I just killed it, I won everything. That's not the way that I think family court should work. And in the same vein, I don't think you should walk away thinking, man, I just got slaughtered. Like, he or she just took me to the cleaners. And it doesn't have to be like that at all.
Yeah.
So if everyone leaves a little miffed at me, then probably got it right. Job well done, Sara Kate.
So do you ever have people that where both parties leave and they're like, man, I got everything I wanted. Like, it was like, it's real amicable.
So no, not
Really?
not really anymore. When I first started, because no one knew how I was going to rule on things, every attorney tried every case. So it was just hearing after hearing after hearing after hearing after hearing. It was just tons and tons of hearings. And so I got to do several cases where everyone walked away with a lot of what they wanted. They were pretty happy. Now, because I've ruled so consistently over the last, 4.5 years, 10,000 some odd cases,
Wow.
then you don't. There's not a necessity to try your case anymore. With consistency, how I'm going to rule. So those easy cases settle, and now I just take your agreement and affirm your agreement, and you get to leave my courtroom. I only hear now the really, really, really crappy, like 3 really crappy cases in my court, because if you can't settle it based on my prior rulings, then you have some really horrible facts, or you have people that just want their pound of flesh, or there's something new. I've had a couple cases of first impression that were very interesting. So I only hear the difficult ones at this point.
So, I gotta ask, man. Like, give me the history. Like, I don't know, man. Like, to me, I understand, like, the function of marriage in society less today than probably I did 20 years ago, because I think the lens I view it through is different. And I think that comes with, you have your belief system slightly change or they alter or whatever. But I don't know, man. Like, it just seems like, because, my wife and I, we talk about this. Like, what does marriage really mean? Right? I mean, because do people stay together because we're married and it'd be too difficult, or is it like really commitment? So we've like walked through like scenarios like just in general, with kids and what do we tell them about life? But to me, marriage is like a deal where you got to go to the government like, hey man, like we want to have sex together. The government says, oh okay, well you can have sex. Here's your piece of paper. You got to wait. Was it 3 days after you get your piece of paper?
72 hours, correct.
Yeah, you wait 3 days and then you can enact it. And then at some point in time, you're like, we're kind of tired of having sex. Like, we're not going to do this anymore. And the government's like, okay, hang on. It's not 72 hours, right? You got to come to us, or we're going to tell you how everything's going to be split up. Like, I just don't know, man. Like, what's the history behind, where, there's a court system where you had to go through the process? Is this, before the founding fathers? I mean, what's the history here?
Well, so before, Texas is a no-fault divorce state. And what that means is you can get a divorce in Texas without having to prove cheating, domestic violence, some sort of inability to have sex. That's definitely a reason. So we're a no-fault divorce state, but that wasn't always the case. And in most states, I think almost all of them at this point are no-fault divorce states. So you don't have to prove some nefarious reason for your divorce.
Wait a second. So before you had to like prove there's a reason, like,
Yes.
So what if you couldn't prove that reason?
Then you could not get a divorce.
I just don't get. Okay, all right.
And so that's really the reason for the court system, at least regarding family law in divorce cases at the outset, was because you had to prove the reason for your divorce. You entered into a contract both with each other and God and everyone there at your ceremony or whatever.
Right.
And so for many years, you had to have an actual legitimate reason to get a divorce. Now, you don't need that. And I would say 95% of the divorces that I render in my court are based on insupportability, which is just a way of saying that you don't get along anymore. So you have to prove insupportability and that there's no hope of reconciliation.
Well, you still have to prove that.
Well, you just have to say it. I mean, under oath, you say, has your marriage become insupportable based on a discord or conflict of personalities that destroys the legitimate ends of the marriage, which is a fancy way of saying you don't get along anymore.
I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. See, I know guys that they're not married, they're with their main or whatever, and they got kids. And I'm like, man, that's a real commitment there. Because there's not like, obviously, if somebody bounced, they're gonna have to pay child support. They just take off, right? That's but from a straight up, marriage situation, or relationship standpoint, it, to me that maybe that means a little more, right?
So I would think that it does, but I am divorced, so what do I know?
Well, yeah, well.
So people say all the time, I don't know why you want to get married. It's just a piece of paper, but so is a $100 bill, and you work really hard for that.
Oh, there she is. That's not bad.
Right? I'm just saying, if it's just a piece of paper, it depends on the value that you place on it
that
and
piece
what
of paper?
intrinsic value that piece of paper has. $100 may be more meaningful to someone than their marriage certificate. I think that's unfortunate, but it certainly happens.
So, do you prefer the family court, or would you like to do something else at some point in time, or like what's the long game for SK?
The long game for SK.
You were just telling me before we got on here, you were telling Richard that Judge Judy announced her retirement today.
She did.
Is that the long game for SK?
There you go. That's the long game. No. So, I don't know what the long game is for SK. It's an election year right now for me, and I'm on the ballot.
Right.
I'm unopposed.
Shout out.
Right. Shout out. Vote Sara Kate. But so I love my court. I love my job. I love what I do. I would be lying to you if I told you that it wasn't difficult.
Yeah.
Because I really do hear the hard, nasty cases wherein you find out that people are very awful to each other, and it makes me sad. So, I don't really know what's going to happen. I would like to stay in my court for as long as the voters would have me. I mean, I obviously serve at the election of the people,
Right.
and if they get tired of me, then they can vote me out. But I enjoy serving. It's a huge pay cut from private practice. I will say that. But, I really enjoy serving. I love my job. Today I did 2 adoptions, which make me so happy. Last Friday I got to marry a friend's sister, Stacy Brown. Her sister Joni got married, and so I got to do that wedding. And those are perquisites of the job that are pretty fun. I also get state judge license plates, which is a nice perquisite of the job.
So you don't have to pay parking meters in Austin, right?
I don't think I would, but I never drive to Austin. I always fly.
Yeah, it's a long drive, man.
It is a long drive, but by the time that because we don't have a nonstop, so by the time you fly Midland to your layover destination, layover, and then to Austin, you could have driven it, I'm sure.
It depends where you're staying. I used to stay, downtown. I was, back and forth for almost 2 years.
I remember that. You were there all the time.
Yeah, so I'd stay downtown. And there was one period where I was there for a little over a week stretch. And so I took my truck down there. And, man, it was a pain.
To park it?
Oh, man. And we had a parking garage, too. But I was always like, is it going to clear? Because no one, especially in downtown Austin, no one has like a big truck.
Right.
Not that mine's not lifted or anything, but it was just difficult. So for me, I felt like it was easier to get that quick turnaround in left field, and then hop on an Uber. And I felt like I could be in downtown Austin in 4.5 hours.
Sure.
So that's.
And you can walk everywhere downtown Austin, which is nice. You don't need wheels.
Or Lime scooter.
Or get a Lime scooter. I saw many Snapchats of you on a Lime scooter.
So I was with a buddy of mine one time. He works for the Attorney General's office. You met him, Mark Rylander.
Right.
And we were going from their office down to the courthouse. I mean, it's probably 8 blocks, but we Lime scootered it. So, there we are like in August, like trying not to sweat, jacket and the ties just like flapping.
Flapping in the wind.
Flapping in the wind as we're going down. And I was like, I just hope we don't eat this because I'm going to tear the crap out of this suit. So.
But I bet it looked so good with your tie flapping. You needed someone behind you.
Like filming.
Yes, exactly. So when I was in Petra, my mom and we were in Petra, and we had met these Bedouins, and they had walked us up to the monastery. And then they said, hey, we live in the Rock. Do you want to see where we live? So, of course, Peggy and I are like, yes, we want to see where you live. Absolutely.
Wow.
So they start taking us. In retrospect, it was probably pretty stupid. No one knew where we were. And we're going off with these 2 Bedouins. It was awesome, and we lived, obviously. But we're going off into the side of the Rock. Well, my Bedouin was lovely. He was probably the most attractive man I've ever seen in person.
Wow.
And so he had a mule, right, which is half donkey, half horse. And that's what they were walking us up. My mom was on a donkey, and I was on a mule. And that's what they walked us up to the monastery in. Well, so then Tarek got on the mule with me, and we rode off to see his rock. And my mom said that, like, his headscarf, was flowing in the wind.
Yeah.
This is what made me think of it, that his headscarf was flowing in the wind, and all my hair was flowing in the wind. And she said, Sarah, it would have looked like something out of Lawrence of Arabia, but you guys were on a mule instead of a big, beautiful horse.
So you and your mom go on a bunch of trips.
Oh, yeah. We spend so I spend all of my money on travel, food, and fashion. So, yes, lots of trips.
So you guys, how many trips, not vacations, but how many trips did you guys go on last year?
So we went to Canyon Ranch for Christmas and for my birthday. But the big trip we took, we flew to Dubai and spent a couple of days. Then we flew to South Africa from Dubai.
Wow.
And then we flew to Botswana, Zimbabwe, and a third country that totally escapes me right now in the middle of Africa. And then back down to South Africa. Sorry to make
No, you're good.
Then back down to South Africa, then back to Dubai, and back to the United States.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a sick amount of travel. It was amazing, though.
So what's some of the highlights on that trip? What'd y'all do?
Well, in Dubai, we got to see obviously the 5 tallest buildings in the world because the Emiratis built the tallest building, and then they said nobody built anything taller to beat us, so we beat ourselves, and they built another one, and then another one, and another one. So I got to see the Burj Al Arab, which is where Tiger was hitting golf balls
Oh, yeah.
off the top of
Yeah.
for their advertising. So we saw like the 5 tallest buildings in the world, ate really good food. It was 187,000 degrees outside. So you would get from your car, which was air conditioning, and as soon as you step outside, of course, your glasses fog up and you can't see. And my hair, I looked like Rosanna Dana. By the time we left Dubai, my hair was huge and so big.
Was
and
it as long as
frizzy.
it is now?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
But it was huge and big and frizzy. But Dubai was incredible. I want to go back. We also went to the gold souk, and I made a friend in the gold souk, and so he took me out.
Okay, what's the gold souk?
It's their market that they sell nothing but gold.
Oh God.
Yeah, and it's amazing. There's a picture of me and my mom with this huge ring. I don't remember how many hundreds of like pounds of gold it was. It was this gigantic ring. But his name was Khalil, and he took me out that night, right?
All right.
Yeah. And so my poor mom, but she's pretty cool with it. She's like, yeah, whatever. Just take your phone, make sure that you don't get stranded.
Location services.
Exactly.
Yeah.
GPS on. So we went out and we were walking into this bar, and so of course, the Muslim population, they don't drink. It's
Right.
against their religion, but there are bars there, and I
Yeah.
thought they were for tourists or whatever. So we walk in, and there's this entryway where you have to pay a cover charge, and there was a sign that said no traditional Arab garb.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I thought, well, all right, that's going to be interesting. Of course, I'm in jeans and a t-shirt. It was literally 187,000 degrees. So we walk into this bar, and there is a Scottish band singing CCR. I was like, what? Credence? Really?
Wow.
In the
In
middle
Dubai.
of Dubai.
Well,
all right, these are clearly my people. So
I think they could afford to bring some pretty good talent in.
it was the Scottish band, but they were really good. They were really good, and so they were singing Janis Joplin. I wound up hopping on stage and sang Bobby McGee. I had a great time, and then it was time to go because we had to catch our flight. So Khalil had to take me back to the hotel to hook up with my mom, and then we went to the airport and hopped on
Wow.
the airline and flew to South Africa. Crazy. We went to Joburg, so whatever. And then in Africa, so my mom and I jumped off the Victoria Falls Bridge. We did the bungee jump. My 70-year-old mother, who is a rock star, right?
Yeah.
Bungee jumps.
Who's
with me.
also on the ballot?
Yes, she. No.
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 No more.
Oh, I
No,
don't
you're
mean to
good.
keep kicking
It's
you.
fine.
So she is not up for
Oh, okay.
election.
Is it 2 more years?
So she only ran for 2 years, but the city elections aren't up yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't know when that happens, but soon. People are trying to get her to run for mayor, but I'm not sure that she's going to do it. I don't know. She said she's still praying on it.
if she could bungee jump, she could be the mayor of Odessa, right?
Listen, this woman has jumped out of a plane with me. She's jumped off the Victoria Falls Bridge with me. She got into a hot air balloon in Egypt and rode up in a hot air balloon with me. She has no fear.
Wow.
Yeah, she's amazing with zero fear. I think that's where I get it.
No, I mean, well, yeah, but Peggy Dean has some fire to her.
She does. And at 70, I mean, I'm so
Well,
impressed.
I can't believe she's I don't really.
Yes, 70. August
Wow.
27th.
Wow.
Right?
Okay, so out of all your trips, was last year, was that the pinnacle, or do you have one you're like, oh, that no, this other trip was the
Egypt trip was the pièce de résistance of
When-
all my travel.
when was that one?
That was in 2000, I think 10.
Okay.
It was during the Arab Spring. And in fact,
Oh, yeah.
we were in Cairo the day the first Egyptian caught himself on fire in Tahrir Square. So the Tunisians started it the night before because they were trying to run Ben Ali out of Tunisia. And so in a form of protest, a Tunisian caught himself on fire.
Wow.
And the whole country revolted. Ben Ali, they got him out of Tunisia. So the following day, we were in Cairo, and the first Egyptian did the same thing in Tahrir Square. So we hopped on a flight and flew to Amman, Jordan, where Vladimir Putin was staying at the Four Seasons with us. So everyone was walking around, and the Jordanians, their military walks around with old like AKs, like AK-47s and like ARs everywhere. But they're old and they don't look like they've been cleaned in a minute.
Like
Now the-
like Rambo First Blood.
Yes,
Like
yes,
those, yeah.
yes. But even an older weapon than that really hasn't been cleaned or oiled in a minute. Now the Russians though walked around with all of their ARs and they were slick.
Shiny.
Oh yeah, brand new, fancy. So yeah, Vladimir Putin was in the Four Seasons with us in Oman. But that trip was so amazing. It was the most amazing thing ever.
So how long were you in Jordan?
5 days.
Wow, all right.
Yeah. So we were in Egypt for 12, I think, Jordan for 5, and then flew back through Heathrow so I could visit some of my friends and then back to home.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was crazy.
I mean, I didn't know you were there at the Arab Spring. That's nuts.
Literally the day that it started, we were across the street. We were staying because we were scheduled to leave. So we were staying in a hotel right across the street from Tahrir Square.
Wow.
Yeah, it was unbelievable just to be there and all of that. So, of course, I made a friend while I was there. His name was Kareem. We still talk. And so when I was in Jordan, he was texting me saying, this is so crazy because Hosni Mubarak, who was the president of Egypt at the time, turned off the internet. And I don't know how you can turn off the internet, but he turned off the internet. And then he turned off the cell phones. And then he turned off the electricity. So you couldn't ATM. They made a curfew. You couldn't be out late. You couldn't have internet or any social media to gather your friends in protest.
Wow.
So he was trying to stop all the protesting.
Right.
And starve out his people, because if you don't have any money to pay for groceries, then the store owners won't sell you groceries. So at some point, you are starving, you are thirsty, you cannot contact your friends or your family, there's a curfew. So he did all of these things in an effort to keep his position. It did not work, as you know.
Right.
Hosni Mubarak was run out of Egypt, but then unfortunately, at least in my opinion, they didn't. They accomplished their goal to get Mubarak out, but they didn't get in the leadership I think that most of the people wanted.
Yeah, I mean, well, we can't get political because
Right, it's unethical.
I really like to have that conversation. Just think that it's the nation building. It's just obviously you can't comment on that, but it obviously isn't the greatest policy. So, quick transition. So, you still playing any golf?
So I haven't picked up my sticks in like a year, which is unfortunate.
Well, because you're like cooking all the time.
I'm cooking all the time. I live at the courthouse. And I don't know. I spend all my weekends traveling, it seems like.
Tell me about your charcuterie board, man. I was at your house one time, and there was someone that came in and picked up a charcuterie board. And I swear that thing was as long as this table here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have some that are longer than this table, actually.
God. So where'd you learn how to do that?
Eating. I mean, I like food. I love to cook. It's sort of my therapy and my self-care, I guess.
Yeah.
But it all started because when I became a judge, so when I was in practice, I had all these friends, right, that would be really happy when they saw me enter a room. Or I had people that I knew that when I walked in, hey, what's up, Sarah? How's it going? People were happy to see you. When you become a judge, like we talked about at the outset of this conversation, you kind of upset at least half the people you run into.
Right.
And so I realized that people aren't always happy to see you. But if you have food in your hand, all of that changes. So I started bringing food everywhere. I was just feeding the masses. And my best friend, Ian, who's like my little brother, I made a charcuterie board for a Christmas party, and he said, hey, SK, you should sell these. Like, no one's going to want to buy my charcuterie boards. Like, you can go do this yourself. He's like, no, these are works of art. They're beautiful.
Richard, you should see these charcuterie boards, man. They're pretty impressive.
I have pictures. I'll show you. Yes, for sure. On
on Facebook. I'm going to look.
Oh, yeah, check it out. And then Creations by Sara Kate.
Oh,
Shout
there she
out.
is. Oh, here we go. There's the plug.
Hey.
So is that, you have a website or just you do that on Facebook?
Just on Facebook. And I
What is it called again?
Creations by Sara Kate.
Creations by Sara Kate.
Right?
You looking that up? Okay.
There's lots of charcuterie on there. And then I've catered weddings and things like that. I like to cook. It's pretty fun. I still can't believe that people actually pay me to do it because I love it and it's very easy for me. But
You cater weddings?
sure.
Oh man, that just sounds like
I did the Safari Club opening, the museum opening for the Safari Club a couple years ago. I catered that whole thing.
Yeah, but it wasn't a wedding, man.
No,
Like,
it wasn't a wedding.
the wedding, I don't know, man. It's just, you gotta, you gotta make sure the bride and the mother of the bride are happy.
True story.
And sometimes that's hard to do.
Food, though, easy. Give them a tasting. And I made my chicken spaghetti, and they really liked it. So give them a tasting. They get to pick their menu, and then...
I know, man, but
Yeah, weddings are rough.
yeah, they can be.
Yeah.
I think I'd want to.
Charcuterie
at that.
board. You found it.
Yeah, it's impressive, man. He's Richard's trying to get the charcuterie board in the shot there. we don't have the functionality yet to throw that up on the screen. We're still a low rent podcast here.
I like it though. I like your whole setup.
Hey, thanks, man. Hey, we and again, Homewood Suites, they hooked it up tonight.
Right.
So
The lady that does my lashes has one of these lights. They're so bright.
yeah. So Richard, he actually bought one of these lights. So here's what Richard handles all the marketing and promotional media for the university athletics, and so
Nice.
they're actually he's actually bought one of these, and they're going to use it for some of their promo shoots, individual shots for posters or whatever. And he had it set up in his house, and his girlfriend was like, "Man, can you just leave this up all the time? This is great lighting for makeup."
True story. So Tiala is one of my really good friends. The softball coach.
Oh, I love her.
Dude, she is amazing.
So I actually have. So when I decorated Lynx Bar and Grill, I put pictures of the university in there, and obviously I'm into all the sports and stuff. And one of my friends at the time, he's still my friend, but one of my friends at the time, he was the head basketball coach. So I have a picture of him around his team. But if you're out there, look for her. There's a picture of Tiala, and she's like really smiling, but you can tell the dirt was blown. They had dirt on their faces, but her teeth are like bright white, and she's fist bumping with another player. It's a really cool picture.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
She is awesome. She did this whole women's lecture series last semester.
Really?
Yes, and so she had several of us from the community come talk to her girls.
I remember you did that.
Yeah, and I fell in love with them. I fell in love with those girls. They were so cool and really kind and good people and smart girls, and they have their poo-poo together, and
Right.
I mean, it was impressive.
They just passed 800 hours of community service for this year.
I saw that.
Who
She
the
sent me
softball
that.
did?
Yes.
Yeah. So Richard was saying 800 hours community service done by the softball team. What is there? 15 total players doing 800 hours of
Yeah.
community service.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, man. No,
They won. They swept Midwestern.
no, they're kicking ass. I mean, and look, man. She deserves to have a winning season, and I think they're going to do really good. I mean, she's just been building the last few years.
She deserves a softball field.
Hey, man,
saying.
it's just we need to get up. It just takes money, man.
I
It's like
know.
anything else.
I know.
It's like anything else in the city. So let's talk about that, man. So that's one of the things I wanted to do with this. Just ask some of the questions. And again, it's not I've talked to Mr. Marrero about coming on, and and I kind of talked to your mom a little bit, when she first got in, city council. It just seems like in West Texas and I'm not just singling out Odessa, but it just seems like in West Texas for years we've kind of kicked the proverbial can down the road, right? I think the last park built in Odessa was UTPB Park. I mean, I know that Junior League did the water park out there, but actual park, neighborhood park in a setting built by the city, I think it was UTPB Park, man. And that was 82 or 83.
Right.
It's been a while.
Right. Were you even born then?
Are you kidding? I'm old, man. Yes, I was born.
Whatever.
Yeah.
You're
yeah.
what, a 79 or 80 baby?
I just barely made 79, man.
Yeah, I'm 78.
Well, I was just barely slid in 79, but I just you look at what's the what can we do? You mentioned softball needing a softball field. She does, right?
I just want those girls to have a home.
I want the girls to have a home. I like for the men's baseball team to have a home. Hell, I'd like for the women's basketball team to have a court that we can be proud of. I mean, just getting the thing painted helped a ton when we did that 2 years ago. But
Sure.
there's all these needs, Right, and that's really what I wanted to do with this is, Libby Campbell's one I'm going to bring on and talk to her, talk about the food bank, because you have all these nonprofits that every year they have their fundraiser, and they sell their tables at $10,000-$15,000, and it's the same people buying those tables. So my question is, like, what's the collective need? Like if we had X dollar amount, then tax dollars could be utilized to benefit this, and then the other dollars could come in to assist with this piece. And whether it's the University of Texas system or private funding, university could have what their needs. Look at Odessa High and Permian's basketball gym. Same gyms when I was there, and they were 10 years prior, 30 years old. And so when you go to a game at Permian OHS, you really don't have a home court advantage, because the fans they're 30 feet up in the air, removed from the game, and it's so disengaging.
Right.
But all these organizations, whether it's ECISD or limited amount of parks through the city, or the county has what's the county going to do with the courthouse? Are we going to build a new one? Are we going to remodel that one? Or
that is a thorn in my side, the bane of my existence.
So you had actually, when you were in the courthouse, you've actually had like leakage in your office.
Okay, so there's video on my Facebook that the news has used more than once. There used to be a federal holding facility, so it wasn't for state court, it was a federal court, and their holding facility was inside the Ector County Courthouse. Well, when you are stuck in a room, 2 hours a day, it gets boring, and you want to get out of your room, right? I mean, we can all see
not
that
you,
would happen.
the inmate, right?
Right. Yeah.
okay.
Not you necessarily, but the person inside the jail. So what they would do is they would put pants and all kinds of things, shove them down in their toilets, and then flush until it overflowed and then caused a huge leak. Well, that water has to go somewhere, and gravity's going to make it go down, and they were just right above my courtroom. So I would have sewer water, and not fresh. I wish. Actual sewer water.
It's non-potable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Sewer water that would rain down into my courtroom. So one day there were these gaping holes in my courtroom, over my bench, all over my bench, my computer, all over one of the counsel tables, and then a couple of spots inside the courtroom where they had to bring in those industrial-sized trash cans to catch all the water that continued to leak down. And while looking at it's gross, smelling it is even worse. If you can imagine, I kept threatening to get those. Those old school plastic umbrella hats? Do you remember those?
Yeah.
So I kept threatening to get those for the attorneys that had to sit at that table, because it was a constant leak for many days. And I thought, all right, you guys, I'm going to spring for some umbrella hats for you all, because that's just foul. And that's not a good working environment for anybody.
Yeah.
Not for me, not for the attorneys, but more than that, not for the litigants that come into court. I mean, you want to come to court and worry about your case, not whether or not the ceiling's going to fall in on you. So, yeah, I have an issue with all that. I will say, now that the jail is gone, I haven't had any of those problems. The water fountain pipe burst a couple weeks ago and flooded my chambers, but at least it was clear. It was clean water, and they got it fixed. Can I just give a shout out to Ector County Building Maintenance? They are keeping that courthouse together on
duct tape,
a prayer, some chewing gum. But they're awesome, and they respond quickly, and they try so hard. The fact that thing is even still up is only because of building maintenance.
So what are they doing with that jail area now?
I don't know. They've been remodeling it, but that is above my pay grade. I'm on a need-to-know basis, and I don't need to know what they're doing.
So they're not. So what are they doing with those federal people? The guys that were being held. Where are those guys at now?
They moved them somewhere to another facility. They didn't renew their lease with us. Because
with the county. Okay, I remember
with
that.
the county, right? Because they were asking for all of these repairs that we were not that we had already done, and they still broke a second time. But B, we weren't required to perform under the terms of the lease.
Right.
So I think that Judge Hayes and the commissioners finally said, "No, we're not paying all this money to do this. You're killing us anyway." And so they chose not to renew the lease.
So can you speak on your preference of new facility or remodel the current? Can you speak on that?
So I think judges have a weird canon of ethics. I can't talk politics. I can't talk to you about how I feel about things that may come before my court, and I have a court of general jurisdiction, so that's just about everything. I don't care at this point if we have a new courthouse or we remodel the current courthouse. I think it would be difficult to displace all of the people that work inside the courthouse to remodel that one, although it can certainly be done. I want a facility that elevators work, that we can control the temperature, that you don't have water falling from the ceiling, that the toilets don't just randomly explode. I guess there's a bunch of air in the pipes or something. So like when you flush a toilet, sometimes the sink will explode out. I mean, so I just want a functioning courthouse, and I don't care if it's new or it's a refurbished and where we are, but I would like something. I think the citizens of Ector County, quite honestly, they deserve better than that, and not everyone goes through jury qualification, but when they do, I always talk about that, and I say, look, bring water, wear layers. These thermostats on the walls are for decoration. We have no control.
Wow.
Don't ride the elevators because they can't be trusted. Take the stairs unless you just have to. We have people on the first floor of the courthouse that can't go to the restroom because you have to take stairs down to the restrooms, both men and women. So they have to hop on an elevator and go to the second floor and then walk all the way down to the other side of the courthouse just to go to the bathroom. So if you are disabled and you can't walk stairs, then getting to the elevator and walking all the way down, using the facilities and walking all the way back is a job. And I think that the citizens deserve more than that. But
Yeah.
I wish I had the answer. I don't.
Wow, I didn't I didn't realize all that.
And our commissioners have really been trying to find an answer.
Yeah.
And there's not an easy solution, and that's really the problem.
Yeah, because no one wants to pay more taxes.
Correct. And the bid, I guess probably 8 or 10 years ago when they tried to do that, I think they were asking for upwards of $90 million, like a line of credit that they could draw from in the bond. They didn't have a location. They didn't have a plan. It was out of need, and it was a sprint to the finish to try to get everybody informed. And that need still exists. We just need to come up with a better plan, because I think that we have educated voters that really care. We need to give them the information that they're asking for.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wish I had an answer.
So speaking of improvements, one thing locally that it's still kind of in the works of being improved, and I know that you've done some stuff with this organization, and I've done a little bit, but that's the Permian Playhouse.
Oh, I love the Playhouse.
And so you you did Divas and Desserts for how many years did you do? How many years did you do? You did Divas the first year, right?
I did first, second, and third. Unfortunately, judges can't raise money.
Okay.
And so once it started getting publicized that you were coming to actually see the Divas instead of just a show, then I thought I should probably err on the side of caution and not participate anymore, because I don't want it to look like I'm raising money. And I never asked for anyone to come. I never sold a table or a raffle ticket or anything like that. It wasn't like that. But I just would prefer to err on the side of caution and not get in trouble for raising money.
So, but I want to talk about what you did the second year of Divas and Desserts.
Ice Ice Baby.
You did Bro, she did Ice Ice Baby.
I wrapped it like a boss.
So, and we were talking about this a little earlier. There's a certain, TV kind of reality show you would love to go on.
Oh, yeah. I want to go on Lip Sync Battle. I love Lip Sync Battle. I think that show's great, but you have to be famous to do it. And a district judge for the 446 District Court doesn't count as famous.
I mean, it's close.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, whatever. Infamous, maybe.
So if you're able to go, what would be your first, with the first leg, what would you do first?
Oh, well, obviously. So Snoop is my favorite, but I love No Vaseline. You would have to edit it out because all of the curse words.
Oh, yeah.
But Cube was so mad when he wrote that song.
He was
in response
upset.
to Easy and NWA.
Yeah, he was upset.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
And he was so mad, and I remember when that song came out, I was an angsty teen that was pretty mad too.
Yeah, so you were, what 13?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I remember that song came out.
And I've loved that song since, the 90s. And I would love to do that jam. Or something. I would do Lottie Dottie. And I would sing the girl part and Snoop's part.
So I remember when that song first came out, and I heard it. This back when they had cassettes, man.
Right.
So I heard it on a buddy's little bitty jam box when we were leaving the Boys and Girls Club. He's playing. I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then I was like, oh my goodness, like those words are so bad.
You're horrible.
But he was, he's being explicit and trying to explain himself, which I'm totally good with that from an artist's perspective. But
First Amendment.
yeah, yeah. Well, that was kind of their whole spiel. But so when I was growing up, like we couldn't listen to music. Like my mom was like real ultra, conservative, Christian, whatever, and she didn't want us listening to music that like we listened to country. And when I got my first Discman, she was like, okay, I don't want any rap and no Madonna and no like heavy metal. And I was like, okay. So she's like, you listen to Christian or country? And I was like, ugh.
Little jazz.
Yeah, well, I mean, jazz isn't cool when you're like 8th, 9th grade.
Right.
Come on, man. So the first like CD ever bought was Winona's first solo album.
Really?
That's what I bought first.
Winona Judd.
I don't know why.
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't know why, but I just remember like that. The album cover with her like red hair,
Right.
like on the front of the cover. That was my first. That was my first CD, and then I slowly like talked to mom and like, Mom, Boys to Men, like ABC, BBD, the East Coast Family. It's
Right,
okay.
right.
Like it's. Yeah. So they're not. So that was okay.
I know you went to Shy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well.
yeah.
Yeah. I got in. Actually, I didn't get into Shy till probably early high school. Yeah, I got into Shy, but yeah, Shy. Wow, you brought that up. That's pretty good. That's
Of
pretty
course,
good memory.
yeah. So just for everyone listening at home, DB used to be my client. So I got to know DB when I was in practice,
Yep.
working on corporate stuff for you,
Yeah.
and doing all kinds of fun, crazy adventures.
Yep,
You have
crazy
the
adventures.
entrepreneurial spirit, which I loved.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember you telling me the story about how you proposed to Marcy.
Yeah.
You sang,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
sang to her. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Listen, if some guy ever wants to propose to me, feel free to sing to me in an airport. I'm just saying.
Oh, crap. This guy, he's ear to ear over here, just like, what? I don't know this.
It's a good story.
Yeah. Well, it's a story. No, it was fun. Like we had we had a good time with that. Yeah.
So yeah, back to G-Funk era gangster rap.
Yeah, no, I think it's that whole era was kind of interesting when you look at in that period, especially kind of for us, mid, moving into the late 90s, that was right before kind of the Napster thing kind of came into play, and it really changed music. So, Britney Spears, I'm not bringing this up, but like she was one of the last artists that Sony Jive had that got a big check up front and it wasn't her first, it was like her second or third album. And it was like right after that period, right when the 2000s hit, that's when like the Napster thing hit. And, you just weren't getting this, they weren't generating the revenue out of album sales that they were before. And then, selling singles and that really changed, the whole dynamic, that whole industry. And some people say, well, it did good because it brought more creativity, but there's just so much now coming out, and it's so different. Like, and I've always kind of asked this question, is the music I think is still really the best music, like from like my high school, early college years. Is that the best music because it's really the best music, or is there something like in that formidable like time frame, like in our brain, that says no, man, like during these years, the music that was out is the best, like Counting Crows, Bush.
Bush.
Bush is great.
The Toadies.
Yeah, I mean that. All that. Oh God, what was it? I just went blank. The guy, She's a Brick. I'm drowning and slowly. Crap. It's
I
one,
don't think I know this song. And I have a pretty eclectic taste in
I don't
music.
know. I remember, God, what was that?
I did.
I've
I,
gone blank. Yeah,
I did
gone
like
blank.
all of that, like Nirvana.
Nirvana's
I was
great.
such
Oh,
a Kurt
yeah.
Cobain fan.
Yes. Like,
And all the grunge rock.
yes.
The G-Funk era is my favorite. So I'm always gonna holler back to that. But I mean, Warren G, Wu-Tang,
Yes. I mean,
Easy,
and
Ice
and don't get me
Cube,
wrong. Like,
Dr. Dre.
I'll listen to the rap out now, but I'm tired of someone telling me how to dance.
Right.
Right. I mean,
Kiki.
yeah,
love
that's
me?
not what. I mean, that's cool, bro, but that's not what it really. It was those guys kind of telling their story.
Sure.
Their experiences growing up, which, I mean, again, I didn't grow up in Compton, so I don't, but it still was interesting to be able to look at it from someone else's viewpoint. That's different than, this is why I'm hot.
Right.
All right. Now, I'm not trying to take a dig on Mims, but Mims never really defined why he was hot, right? It was
Yeah.
circular reasoning,
Sure.
right? He just says I'm hot because I'm not. This is why I'm hot. He never really defines like, well, this is really why I'm hot. He
Right.
doesn't define like I'm aesthetic or everything
I have a
like
banging personality.
everything measures up just right,
Right.
left to right. It's all
Exactly.
I got symmetry.
Totally,
Yeah.
symmetric,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. He doesn't really define that. So I don't know. I just felt like that was a letdown for me. So I was like, wait a second. Is he going to define why he's hot? Like,
Well, and people that talk about that Drake is like the next coming of Pac. I mean, and I like Drake. I'm not even
Yeah.
being a hater, but no, you're not the next coming of Pac.
no.
But I like Drake, but he's no Tupac.
So have you ever, I know you've been to California, but have you ever been driving down like California, like the 405 or the 101, and California Love comes on?
So I actually was just on the 101 about
All
a
right.
month ago, and that's all we listened to was all Tupac all weekend. And I do love California Love. I send a Tupac song to my mom every year for Mother's Day. It's like a total thing. I've done it since I was a child.
That's
So
awesome.
my mom really thought that rap was going to scar me for life. and my mom worked all the time, so she didn't really I guess police what I was listening to. You know, how your
Right.
mom said country or Christian. So my mom worked all the time. My dad was not that great and really, well, he was just not that great. And so my mom worked and she went back to school, got an education. She was the breadwinner. She got us, really kind of out of the ghetto in Hobbs. And so she wasn't there policing what I listened to. And one day she came in and I was listening to something salty, like really, really salty. NWA, old school NWA.
yeah.
And she almost had a coronary thinking, what are you listening to? You're my sweet child. What are you listening to me? She really thought it was going to ruin me. And now what's funny is that I put lyrics on the record every day in my courtroom.
Okay.
And so I have friends that will, like at family dinner on Sunday nights, they'll say, hey, this week you have to put like Taylor Swift or I do a lot of Ice Cube, like you better check yourself before you riggedy wreck yourself and stuff like that. So it's pretty funny because I think, well, I guess it didn't scar me. I'm still okay. I think it turned out okay.
Yeah, I think you turned out okay.
Right. I mean, I could always be better, but.
One of my favorite Peggy Dean stories, I want you to share this one, is, when you finished your undergrad degree, TCU, right?
Well, TCU for musical theater, but
Okay.
then I went to UTPB for marketing.
Yeah, but she said, okay, you have a degree that for play.
To enjoy.
Oh, to enjoy.
Yeah.
Now we needed one
Yeah,
to.
you got to go get one to employ.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a toot. She was not for all the musical theater stuff. She wanted me to go and get a business degree and go back to school, and I was a hot mess back then anyway. So, I mean, moms know best, right? They always know
Yeah.
what you should do, and
Yeah.
I was just a hot mess. And so, instead of doing the musical theater thing, she was like, you need to go and get a business degree. She really wanted me to be an accountant like her.
Oh, yeah.
But numbers are not my jam. Words are my jam. Numbers, no, not so much.
So you got the marketing degree.
Yes, got a marketing degree and then decided, law school, let's do that. Let's apply late. I had to overnight my application. I hadn't taken the
Really?
LSAT. Yeah. So I sent my application in April, took my
No.
LSAT in June. Yes, true story. Took my LSAT in June, got my score in July, and it was high enough to start school in August.
Wow.
Yeah. So, whatever. Let's go to law school on a whim.
Well, so, as we, kind of, bringing everything around, when you look at, where you've been here in Odessa a little over 20 years now.
Since 90, off and on since
Oh,
90.
wow, okay, yeah.
So almost 30.
So
No, that is 30.
yeah,
Yeah. See,
nailed
I
it.
told
30.
you. I told
Yeah,
you
she's
numbers
like-
were not my thing, right? And
That's
the
not the
defense
jam.
rests, right? I rest my case.
So when you look at over 30 years, where we were 30 years ago, where we are now, we have this influx of people for various reasons, but for the most part, it's the growth in the the oil and gas sector. What is it that Odessa, and I don't want to put the onus on the local government. What is it that the citizens need to do to try to drive Odessa towards a certain level or continue a level of excellence um, over the next several decades? And I say that because I look at really in my perspective, and I know there's a ton of other people out there that are doing things, and these are really high level, and you can see these from not just a 30,000, but you can see these from an 80,000 foot view. But I look at really what Colin Sewell has done with Parks Legato out here on the east side of
On the east
Odessa,
side.
making an investment in that. And if people that think, oh, just no big deal, Colin, it's him to go build a new, you can tell the guys he's it was done not because there wasn't any stress involved. I mean, I just from having conversations with him, and he's definitely a guy I would love to have on here at some point in time, just to talk about his views as an entrepreneur, but and what he's done, and really to help develop this east side of Odessa that really 10 years ago wasn't a lot here, right? And then what Toby and Sandra have done downtown with the renovation of the Ector Theater, putting in the hotel and convention center. I mean, that's a huge investment. There's another risk, right?
They're not hoteliers. They didn't do it because they wanted to get in the hotel business.
Right. So, I think those things are great. What is it that Odessans can do to try, or not as Odessan, just collectively across the Permian Basin, across West Texas? What can we do to try to make West Texas great, not just for people living today, but those coming in over the next 2 decades?
Oh, I have a litany. I have a whole
Oh,
list
yeah,
of things.
talk to me. Let's hear about it.
All right, so I think the most important thing, and I am privileged enough that I get to speak to groups pretty regularly, and I talk often about I wish we all had more pride in where we live.
Right.
For instance, last week someone on my Facebook said, "Well, I guess I'm moving back to sleazy Odeezy." And I thought, that's the problem. Is it funny? Sure. Does it rhyme? Sure. I call it Odeezy. I don't call it sleazy Odeezy.
Yeah.
But again, the whole G-Funk era gangster rap,
Yeah.
I'm going to say things like that. But I wish we had more pride in where we live. I do travel a lot. And I'm always proud to say that I'm from Texas, that
Yeah.
I'm from Odessa. This is my home. That the land of opportunity, the amount of opportunity that we have here. When I graduated from law school, my mom was trying to get me to come back to Odessa. And like many people that are that age, and, the world is their oyster, I'd just been living in Europe, and I thought, I'm headed back to Europe,
Yeah.
this is fabulous. And my mom said, Sarah, I promise you will have so much opportunity here. Where else can you go? Because you can't go to Dallas, you can't go to Austin, you can't go to Houston, you can't go to Bexar County and have your, state representative, your state senator, your district representative, your federal senators know you by first name just because they watched you grow up or they know your parents or whatever. You're not going to get into those rooms as easily and as quickly in those bigger cities as you will in Odessa, and that's because we're small, and because we are such a powerful force out here in the West Texas area. And so things like that, there's a lot of opportunity, and I wish we had more pride in our town. I wish we had more pride in who we are. We're not just Friday Night Lights. We're not just an oil field town. We're not just, Odessa, sister city of Midland. Like, we're Odessa, man.
Yeah.
And we have a lot to offer. So
I agree.
So one, I wish we had more pride in who we are. Two, I wish that we had more people encouraging young people to come back. But when I came back, I was a young person. Now I'm 41, so I don't think I'm considered a young person anymore. But when I came back, I was in my 20s. And it was a hard sell for me to come back. but it certainly worked, obviously, because I'm here. So I wish we had more of an outreach to people that go off to TCU, SMU, Harvard, wherever it is that they're going, but then bring that talent back. That talent came out of us.
Yeah.
And so go get your education, go get your life experience, go get all your travels, do whatever, and then come home, because this is a great land of opportunity. This is something we should be proud of, and this is something that we should all work to be better. So I wish there was more outreach to bring that talent back, not just send them out, but to bring that talent back. I wish that Midland and Odessa got along a little better,
Yeah.
and that divide maybe is lessening some.
Yeah, I hope so.
With the newer generations of people, with the commingling of the towns. I hate that there's still that divide.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think that it starts and really ends though with pride. We're so divided. I see on Facebook groups, I see, people's communications on social media, and then just talking with them. You bring up the hotel, and people are saying, why would the city spend that much money on a convention center? No one's going to come here. Okay, but what if they do?
Yeah.
Because it's a state-of-the-art facility.
No, it really is.
And so why not make those investments, but then make them happen instead of just fighting it the whole time? Get yourself educated. The city of Odessa and the county of Ector are different, right? People that say you shouldn't have spent all that money on the convention center. You should build a new courthouse. Well, two separate entities.
Yeah, that's not the
right?
same.
The city of Odessa doesn't build the courthouse.
Right.
They are separate. So get yourself educated. Get yourself involved. If you don't like what's happening, then go get involved and change it.
Yeah.
Instead of people sitting on the sidelines and being armchair quarterbacks or really complaining, because I think that's important. I think we should listen to those people. I think we should hear their voice, hear their complaint. But then we need to empower them to not just complain, sister, but let's go fix it.
Yeah, come be a part of the solution.
Come with me, or let me come with you, and let's find a solution that works for all of us. And I really think some of that starts and ends with pride. Just to be proud where you're from.
No, it's good.
I mean, it may just be really Pollyanna, but I'm happy to be from here.
No, I think that's good. I think that's a good place to end. Well, I'm proud that you came on, and I really appreciate you doing this tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Taking it out of your schedule when you could be making a bomb-ass charcuterie board.
I'll make you one.
Dude, that would be so awesome.
Yeah, I'll make you guys charcuterie.
All right, well, we'll do it, and we'll post the spread like on a podcast, that way people can see it.
Boom, I like
we'll
it.
Give you a shout out.
I like it.
Creations by Sara Kate.
Creations by Sara Kate.
All right, let's have some pride. All right, thanks, SK.
Thanks.
All right.